This was one of those weeks where somehow in the process of talking about this morning, we ended up having 3 new songs that just kind of popped out. And it's amazing to work with people as talented as these guys that can just, take it and create something from it. And so thank you, Elizabeth and Brad and Tom particularly, and Doxy for all of that. I have so much to say, so everybody just kind of take a deep breath and sit back. Feel free to put your feet up or something. We begin Lent today, and Lent began on Wednesday, as we, so many of you I know came around here and experienced the Ash Wednesday services and had the imposition of ashes on your foreheads. And that always is such a powerful time in the life of the church, I think, because it just raises so many things for so many people. You see people walking around downtown, it looks like everybody's dirty. I'm not quite sure how everybody understands this kind of imposition of ashes. I think one of my favorite ways to understand it is you now look kind of dirty and you're at one with everybody else. It's kind of like, it doesn't matter how much you bathe. I also think, for me, there's something about ash. Ash, from ashes we come, into ashes we return. There's a moment of kind of identification, at least, with the temporality of life, the temporary nature of our journeys here. And somehow just kind of knowing that everything is temporary, that everything is in its process on the way somewhere else, is something that, we need to embrace. It's something that we need to notice. It's something that sometimes we need to hold on to. Now, when I was a kid and I was growing up in the church, and all those white-suited evangelists used to say, if you died tonight, where would your soul be tomorrow? Which was kind of a standard statement I'm sure I heard 100 times right before the altar call. That eventually became this kind of, oh gosh, don't try to manipulate me with your fear tactics. I don't want to be another notch in your Bible belt. But at the same time, there is something about knowing and embracing the temporality of life that brings something different to the table. And like we wrote in that last song, there's something about a oneness that we're all headed toward. We're all headed toward where the rivers come together. And living with that in mind can change the way you see things. It can change the way you treat another person. It can change the way you see your own journey, the way you live in this moment. Which may be one way to talk about the passage that we read, that Laura read for us. That idea, here Jesus is at the table of a Pharisee. And who is it that gets it? Who is it that gets it? This is a moment that something important is going to happen. This is a moment that if we were open to it, something might transform our lives. Who is it that gets it? The person with the most sin, at least the way they talked about sin. The idea that Jesus tries to point out in his conversation in this story is it's not until you're broken, often, that you find your way to the table of love. It's not until you've experienced something that cracked you open that time becomes something that you're living in, not just defined by. Time becomes something that is only a marker of a journey in your own emotional and spiritual journey. And perhaps, though living in the now is a kind of overstated thing these days, we're invited to see the miracle in the present moment, the miracle that's here now. The church and Christianity in general, I think, has often been something that may not live in the moment all that well. You know, Joseph Campbell, who taught at Sarah Lawrence for years, used to talk about, when he was interviewed, particularly with Bill Moyer in his series for PBS, The Power of Myth, he talked about there's a difference between the shaman like Moses, the one who is going up on the mountain and having this experience of seeing the burning bush and encountering something of his own experience of the divine, the creative source of all. And let's say Aaron, the priest who carries out the day-to-day rituals and cares for the community and oversees the healing and nurture of that. There's always, as Campbell describes it, these two very different kinds of roles. And in his interview, Bill Moyer then asks, well, who are the shamans? Are these the preachers, the priests? And he says, no, not really. Not really. And today, shamans are more the poets, the musicians. They're more the people who are not likely to be those stable folk, because they're, as one Mayan shaman said to me, they're just in love with the sacred. And that doesn't tend to make for easy, kind of stable lives for people. In churches and any community, it's not always the place where that happens so easily. Always some tensions between that which is kind of the experience and that which is stabilizing that experience with images and carrying it on. Yeah. Stability. It's important. We need stability. We also need fire. We need inspiration. But very seldom do those two kind of come in the same package. Your journey and my journey is often a weaving between the two, isn't it? Often moving back and forth between times of stability and times of transformative inspiration, times of expansion and times of contraction. That's the journey. To be in the present moment, as the woman who is wiping Jesus' feet, is to be in that moment of experience, of inspiration. There are other people at the table who are bringing stability, a place over their heads, food, a way to gather, a belief system. But as Carl Jung once said, religion is the best defense against a religious experience. And I think it's true sometimes. When I was growing up, the Christian church became a place for me where doctrinal belief replaced experiential truth. Where the definition of a Christian or a good, faithful person was measured by belief and commitment to those beliefs and whether or not they were working at transforming or recruiting other people to those beliefs. That was the definition. And if that's what marking your head with ashes means, okay. I just want to suggest maybe it can mean so much more. That it has something more to do with your experience of your sacred self. And as we've talked about for the last 6 weeks in that positiva, creativa journey of our spirituality, maybe it has something to do with what are you giving birth to in your life? How are you connecting with that creative source in your journey? And how does considering the end, where it's all going, where all the rivers run together, how does that change the way you see, change what you create, what you're open and closed to? How we embrace that. We are ashes rising up and ashes falling down. And the wind blows us. The wind blows us. And there isn't much security for poets and clowns, because they're too busy noticing how the world is burning down. What do you create now, here? What are you present to? What miracle are you now? We come to our time of celebration of communion, and Lynn Deloney is going to come forward and lead us through that celebration. And I want to just also share that the ritual of communion has transformed for me across the years. How it speaks to me now in that sense of participating in life, in the temporality of life, in this journey of blessing, and how we live that creative movement of spirit through us. And celebrating that has been a powerful experience for me. I want to invite you to that too. Yeah.